who would like to kick us off? How about Roberta? It's so good to see you here. Do you mind giving us an update on some of the things that Fire Safe Sonoma is doing?
Sure. Thanks for your time. So currently we have, well, my whiteboard's covered up. A handful of projects in play. We've got Safer West County Defensible Space Project, which involves three elements: outreach, education, chipper element, and incentive/rebate element for folks that have work done on their property for defensible space. Will rebate a portion of their invoice for that work. We also have a project in play funded by the county for a Calistoga Road shaded fuel break, which is, we're doing the soft work now, and then the on-the-ground work will occur later in the year. We have a project funded by the county with the collaborative that we're a part of, the Resilient Landscape Coalition, that involves providing educational curriculum with regard to, fire safe landscaping to 4 or 5 different audiences: homeowners, landscape professionals, landscape maintenance workers, and professionals working in the space of defensible space education and work. I could go on and on. I don't want to take the whole meeting up with all our projects. We've got like 7 or 8 in play, but those are the ones that, I'm thinking of at the moment. So I'll leave it there unless you guys want me to continue running down our list. I'm not hearing a response or direction.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I guess that we were muted. I was just saying, no, your updates are great to hear. You can go on if you'd like to. It's wonderful to have you here because it's been a little while. And, but yeah, just listening to your projects that feel most relevant to this group. I feel like your defensible space projects are super relevant to us and our partners. And yeah, I guess if there's anything that you're excited about that's coming up on the horizon, like just looking forward to hearing about those.
Yeah, that probably the most significant thing that's relative across the entire county. We are the countywide council, for those that don't realize it. Is we just hired, we're in the process of onboarding a new person, a paid staff person who will be working half-time as the county coordinator, will be her title. And then Marika, who used to have that title, is going to change her role and be specifically Firewise coordinator. So she's going to be working specifically in the Firewise environment. And we're bringing on another person. And then the other fun thing that will allow us to help more people is we're applying for another round of Climate Corps fellows. This season, we're applying for 4 fellows. Currently, we have 2 fellows working with us. So next season, we hope to have 4.
That's great.
That's awesome. Are there any questions for Roberta? No, thanks, Roberta. I'm so glad you could be here. And
yeah, one last thing, since that's kind of cool. How do you do that?
Biodiversity.
There's an insect crawling on the screen. Yeah, with regard to Measure H, I will, in full disclosure, state that the Board of Fire Safe Sonoma is definitely supporting Measure H. We do have a vested interest in it, of course, as you'll learn if you're not already aware. And then additionally, we did do a presentation on Measure H at our board meeting, first Monday of this month. And then if you know of folks that aren't able to attend this particular informational about Measure H, at 2:00 today, we will be live streaming on our monthly speaker series a presentation by Chief Akre on the Measure H. And so you can find that on our YouTube channel if you're not signed up for attending via Zoom. But yeah, you'll see that between 2 and 3 this afternoon.
Okay, good to know. Fantastic. All right, well, let's popcorn around. Who would like to go next? Maybe Lynn, I feel like it's really good to see you, and I'm curious what's happening in your world. Do you mind giving us an update?
Sure. On a community level, the community of the Upper Mark-West watershed is uncovering from the storms. We had lots and lots of trees down. We had some flooding. We had some mudslides, and a lot of power outages. So as I talk to my neighbors around the watershed, people are still cleaning up, cutting trees. The county did a great job of getting out and taking care of the trees that were across the road. And power was restored within about 4 days for most people that lost power. And then in terms of the Fire Safe Council, as Roberta mentioned, we are working with Fire Safe Sonoma on a shaded fuel break for Calistoga Road to finish up the rest of Calistoga Road. And that involves CCMB and Ecological Solutions. So that's coming up. CCNB also applied through their own channels for a grant that will do a shaded fuel break on St. Helena Road. And I think we have 5 of the 7 miles funded, and we're talking about how to get the last 2 miles funded. So that we're very excited about that. We're excited about our participation with workforce development up here in the watershed. So it's a good partnership for us. As a requirement of the county grant, the vegetation management grant, we have a couple workshops coming up. So on April 6th, I see Eric on the screen. So we're working with Sonoma Ecology Center. They will be doing a presentation at Rancho Mark West that will hit on all 3 kind of zones and beyond. So defensible space, home hardening, and beyond the defensible space for the larger landowners up here. And then in May, we'll be doing our second grazing workshop. We did one last year, sponsored with UC Extension. And I just met with Stephanie yesterday, and we're excited about getting an agenda put together for that workshop. And that's kind of what we're doing up here.
Fantastic, thank you so much. And then I guess, Jason Mills, do you want to piggyback on that?
Yeah, sure. Am I muted? Can you guys hear me?
No, we can hear
We
you.
can hear you.
Okay, great. Hey, everybody. Yeah, I have been busy on dad duty and starting my own local small business. So yeah, just kind of changing gears for Jason Mills and excited about the future. And I'm getting ecological solutions off the ground, and we'll be doing, vegetation management at large. So fire fuel reduction, defensible space, and then also some eco-friendly native plant habitat landscaping work. So just going to be a resource for the community here, and super excited to partner with Fire Safe Sonoma on the upcoming roadside project Roberta and Lynn mentioned on Calistoga Road. And then I'm also going to be leading a broom management workshop for Fire Safe Sonoma as part of their speaker series on March 21st. And I'm working with Judy to do another workshop for the community out there at the Coast Ridge on invasive plant management. So staying active on all fronts. Thanks, you guys.
That's awesome. So, by the way, anyone who has upcoming events, if they're open to the public, and if you don't mind me sharing them, I would love it if you would send me just a little bit of information about those, and then I can get them out. Because we are wanting to put together a calendar for the public, especially for attendees of the conference last June. I'd really love to start plugging all these workshops that are coming up and telling people, hey, continue learning with us, can come to these workshops, and for any of them that are just for specific audiences, like your own neighborhood, you don't have to share those, but if you're open to having a few extra people pop in, I think that would be really great. Thanks. All right, Fred, you're next.
Hey, everybody, it's great to see you. And you people in the room, hi. I can't really see who's there, but did Steve Swain make it?
Yeah.
Hey, good to hear you. Steve and I are looking forward to working on a project on some oaks, I hope, and that would be down at Rana Ranch. This is another Wildlands Conservancy project. Other than that, Wildlands Conservancy is moving on with a Jenner webinar today. We've got 75 people on the horn at 1 o'clock, and that's why some folks aren't here. Other calendar events would also be San Luis Obispo Mountain Forest. We're doing field trips coming up. I don't recall the dates exactly, but in the summer. And it would be, when is it?
June 14th.
June 14th. Thank you, Kim.
You're welcome.
And maybe the 15th too.
I think that might be true.
I think that's true. And I think that there's already like 50 people signed up for the 2 days.
Oh,
And we've got 75 today. So whatever they're doing, their outreach is great. Gosh, just trying to finish up work in Healdsburg, still responding to the 2020 fire. And we were out of power for 5 days and our phone is still down. So welcome to Sonoma County. And you know, everybody seems to still be surprised that it's trees that are doing all the damage. So I think that's something we can go to. Okay, that's it for me.
Thanks, Fred. All right, Eric, you're next.
Hello, all. Haven't been here in a while, so it's nice to see everyone's smiling faces. Busy. I think I always expect the beginning of years to be, I don't know, restorative and exciting, but they're certainly exciting, maybe a little bit more energy consuming though. Right now, really focused on finishing the guide, formerly the handbook. We brought in copy editor and a writer, and we're just really making the content more professional, to be honest. Pretty soon we'll have our initial kind of demo of the website ready, and then we're shooting for April 1st as a completion date. So, you know, keep your ears to the telephone for that. A lot of you will be reaching out to for, you know, as professionals to get a final look before we basically set it out to the public. So please be ready for that. On other notes, as that's getting ready, we've got a lot of workshops coming up. Definitely looking forward to chatting with Kim and Adriana to help organize that. Thinking about professional workforce development as well. Sonoma Ecology Center is working with North Bay Jobs with Justice, Circuit Rider, and CCMB to also do a workforce development grant with biochar. So interested in that as well. Just super excited to see all this funding come in to up that level that we need in the county to do all this wonderful work. So on top of that, the RLC also doing a lot of workshops, excited to be out at Mark West in April, and looking forward to a lot more workshops as the year rolls on. So yeah, I'll leave it there, but happy to see you all.
That's great. Do we want to give you time to present about the guide at one of these meetings coming up this spring, maybe at the April meeting?
Yes, we do.
Okay, I think that would be great if you're down for it. All right.
Exactly what Kim
Oh.
said.
All right, thank you. Ron, you're next.
There. Let's see, Sonoma RCD is going to have their meeting on the 22nd, next Thursday. And kind of plan out how we're going to do all our projects this year. I don't know much about what's going to happen there. Probably Fred will be at that meeting. And we had the Steelhead Festival last weekend, and it turned out pretty good. A lot of people attended, and it wasn't too crowded, but it was pretty crowded. And a lot of kids came there, and a few steelhead actually came up to fish ladder.
Nice.
So they're still alive. I think the big deal is the trees falling down up in Gualala and up on the coast. People, pretty much the landowners, are taking care of most of their own problems. everybody's got their chainsaws fired up, and I think, yeah, probably moving the wood after you cut it, that's probably the next thing. The roads are pretty messy. So, and the resource conservation and development, which is Conservation Works, we were working with the Pomo Indians in Lake County and in the coast, trying to reorient them with their historical migrations to the coast, and that involves a lot of native plant restoration and sort of discovering the old California. We talked about 11,000 years ago when they were big trips out to the coast and back on foot, of course. But I guess we're getting ready for things happening this spring. There's a lot of water coming down. There's hope for the fish, and the waters aren't as turbid as I thought they would be. So there's maybe something we did was right, or the rains just didn't come down that hard. But there are a few failures out there, natural landslides, etc., debris flows. But that's about it for me.
Thanks, Ron. All right, Jill, you're next.
Good morning. Let's see, really nice day on Saturday for the Steelhead Festival. And Ron was nice enough to arrange for the Gualala River Watershed Council to share table space with the RCD. So we got to have a little presence there. Yeah, super nice event, mostly families and kids. Work is proceeding with Gualala River Management Plan. So that's exciting. And I know Genevieve and Jason are working furiously on that. So someday fairly soon there might be a draft for people to see. I think that's about what's going on at the Watershed Council.
Awesome, thank you. And how about Robert Aguero?
Hi, everyone. I think on our end, or at least my end over at Permit Sonoma, still working on updates to the county's tree ordinances. That's tentatively scheduled to go to the board on March 5th. There's currently a moratorium in place for certain tree removal with exceptions, broad exceptions, for fire, residential maintenance, defensible space, emergency tree removal. So that's been extended until May 31st. But we're not running into too many problems with that from what I'm hearing. It's mainly targeting development is really where it's prohibiting tree removal, I would say. But otherwise, yeah, just given the recent slate of storms, been fielding a lot of questions from the public about tree removal in the coast, what's allowed, what's not, and just trying to help people make sure everything's going smoothly. So that's it on my end.
Okay, thank you. And Amanda, you're next.
Hi, everyone. This is Amanda Benton, also from Permit Sonoma, community outreach for the wildfire mitigation grants. We are wrapping up wildfire adapted / SoCo adapts. So I'm trying to get the last of the full home hardening assessments done there. You can see eligible areas if you go to socoadapts.com or org. You can type in an address or APN and see if a parcel is eligible for that program. But we are trying to wrap up all of those full home hardening assessments by the end of March. So the crunch is on. Please tell people that's that's what they have to do it by. And then, you know, it's a FEMA grant. So the next couple phases will be review and internal work, and then we will hopefully be rolling out, you know, actual applications and getting the rebates going within a year. That's the hope. But yeah, I'll be doing a couple community meetings for the sort of last push for all of those in the oh my gosh, sorry, Summer Home Park area on the Russian River. And then yeah, just trying to get those words out. Thanks.
Sounds good. So people need to request the defensible space or the hardening assessments?
Yeah, the defensible space assessments have been done, though some of them are old enough that people could request a newer one. But the home hardening assessments, we sent a crew out that did curbside assessments, so what they could see from the street. But you can get, if you're in one of the eligible areas, you can get a free full home hardening assessment from Madronis, and yes, and that is necessary if you want to participate in the home hardening portion of the rebates.
Okay, great. Well, while I have you here, I should just say that we should talk about workshops and outreach for that kind of work, because there's another project in West County that needs to do workshops and outreach for very similar work. So we should talk.
Excellent. I think
right.
I think I maybe saw pieces of a chain, but yes, we'll chat.
Oh, good. Great. Thanks, Amanda.
Yeah.
All right, Ray Kraus, you're next.
Nothing to add to what Lynn had to say.
All right, things are going okay in the Mark West?
Wet and windy.
All right.
Nice.
Cool. Good to see you. All right, well, we can go around the room. Stephen,
Can we get Marshall? I will be speaking in a moment.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Marshall, if you want to give any updates, you're welcome to. I just thought we would save you for your presentation.
Yeah, I don't mind giving updates. There's just a lot going on with all the different stuff I'm involved with. So I don't know where you want me to start at or not start at, but there's a lot of stuff happening. So I'll just leave it at that. A lot of you guys have been working with, so you know what's going on. So.
Okay, good. For the record, Marshall's going to be with us until 12:45, and then Marshall and Fred and I are jumping over to the BTP workshops that Swanton Ranch is hosting, and that's from 1 to 4:30. So if you guys really want to spend the day with Marshall and I, this is a great opportunity.
And Fred.
And Fred, indeed, right? So.
Long day.
Go ahead, Steve.
Well, to echo some other stuff that folks have been doing, I'm currently working on another bilingual landscaping program that covers a lot of different topics, from water conservation to pre and post fire and a bunch of other stuff, aimed at the small independent landscapers, which are the hardest people for us to get. I think that's only tangentially related, but it's related. Other than that, we've been doing quite a bit of fire work down in Marin County in terms of educational outreach. We convened a tri-county master gardener group that all went down to talk about various different fire safe, look at some well-designed water catchment and defensible space things done by April Owens on some of the local fire departments. And then we also went out and looked at some of Steve Quarles' burn plots and discussed the research that's been ongoing with mulches and what he's coming up in terms of flammability or not on the mulches. And it's kind of surprising. It turns out that composted mulches, and that's not surprising, are less flammable than non-composted mulches. But what was surprising was that finer mulches are less flammable than coarser mulches. And I was not expecting that because the coarser mulches tend to have bigger particle sizes, and you're thinking, oh, embers would set the smaller particle sizes on fire more easily. But that turns out to not be the case because embers tend to go out if there's not much oxygen around. So at least that's what these are looking at. Those are preliminary results. They're still chewing through the data, and we'll see what they actually have to say formally. And I think Sophia Porter, my Fire Smart landscape coordinator, is moving over to work with Tori Norville, who's the fire advisor for Marin and Sonoma counties. And that's about it. So some of my fire work is going to be winding down. Some of my weed work is going to be winding up.
Yeah.
Doing Japanese knotweed. That seems to be moving potentially into Sonoma with Japanese knotweed finds in several places in Sonoma County.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, Jean?
Really quick, because mine is a regional Sierra Club Forest Committee. People are still in our Forest Committee are still looking at and monitoring FOSCHEC and haven't heard anything new. It's a flame retardant that's being pushed on private property owners, and it's got a lot of chemicals and is really not a good thing. With the PG&E Utility Wildfire Prevention Task Force, we are looking at the possibility of a class action lawsuit, that there is an attorney and his firm who are interested, and we will be sending out a letter in the not distant future to people that we know have had major issues with PG&E around their forests and their trees. And then in Vivo, which is a wood pellet company, they've had this big scheme of wanting to put 2 facilities in California, and they are now filing for bankruptcy. So that's it for today.
Wow, okay, thank you. Bankruptcy, just trying to figure out how to spell that word, okay? There's next.
I'm working on the St. Louis County Preventable Space grant that Roberta mentioned. So that's offering free shipping and preventable space rebates to Forestville, Camp Meeker, Occidental, and the second one. Forestville, Camp Meeker, Occidental, Monterey. And then also working a lot with Kim and Adriana on the Resilient Forest and Watershed workshops, which are funded by a NIFWIP grant. So yeah, lots of outreach and education and coordination.
Yeah, and just to further that, the Ag and Open Space is managing the Vegetation Management Grant Program. We have $1 million available for grants this year. And the deadline is March 28th at 3 p.m. Robert Guerrero and Ben Nichols and I hosted our first community workshop on Tuesday. We will do so every other Tuesday until the grant deadline. So mark your calendars if you're interested in learning more about this program for February 27th and March 13th. All the content is the same in each workshop, and if you really don't want to listen to Robert and I and Ben live, you can always go to our website and see recorded versions of it and bash forward all the parts you like or don't like. So, but those workshops are helpful for understanding how to complete the application, as well as how to fill out the CWPP project entry portal, which is both processes are required to submit a grant. Other things coming up is, as Fred and Marshall alluded to, we have the Jenner Headlands a VTP related workshop and how that project is being how that project is a good example of the type of practices we want to see on the ground. We're going to see kind of historical perspective from Fred and Brooke, who will talk about what these forests look like in the initially, what the Wildlands Conservancy is hoping to do with the lands, and then ultimately how that helps to reduce the threat of wildfire in local communities. Let me see, and then just to tag on to what Rose said, we've been hosting a series of the Resilient Forests and Watershed workshops. We hosted one last week at Green Valley last Sunday that we had some excellent presenters for and a good kind of collection of different people who are interested in that type of thing. We will host another one on March 10th, which will be focused on the north side Russian River Shaded Fuel Break project or the beneficiaries. So specifically Gernwood, the Gernwood Community and Neighbors Association, the Rio Nito, Friends of Rio Nito group who are doing a shaded fuel break in that area, as well as Hacienda, which has another project called the Mount Jackson Shaded Fuel Break. So those are projects that we've been working on since 2021 as far as their VTP process, and we're hoping to see carried on to implement this year and next. So yeah, I think that's probably good for me right now.
Thanks, Tim. That's great. So yeah, things that haven't already been mentioned, I guess I wanted to put in a plug for NRCS's Equip. They have an applications open, and I think they're going to be batching early April, I think, for this round, but they'll have another round in another 4 months or so. I can send out more of an update about that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think that they said that they do have a good amount of money this time around, so feel free to apply. And also, Kim and a number of other folks here in the group have been working with Tamara on her feasibility study for a woody biomass processing facility in Sonoma County. She's going to be putting together some workshops in the next, I think, month or two to start getting folks like yourselves engaged in learning more about the feasibility study and providing your input on what you think would work or what's needed. So we'll be sharing that information out once we have a date set for that. I think that's it. All right, is there anyone that we didn't get to? No, okay.
No, can I just write on that last question thing you said? The biomass study that you're doing, are you talking to the folks who are involved in all of the Mediterranean oak borer stuff? Because you have a big cross interest there. One of the big problems with Mediterranean oak borer is that it is not quarantined. And so there is no, if it's not quarantined, there's no, how do we say, mandated, you cannot move this biomass from here to there kind of thing. And that means there's no funding to deal with the problem, but the beetles can be easily spread by people hauling biomass.
Yeah.
So there's a push on the part of a lot of the arborists and people who are concerned in the community trying to contain the spread. And one of the ways they could do this is by having a drop site for biomass that is oriented toward containing beetles when they get brought in. So just something to think about.
That's a good one.
So the folks that are involved in this are like Sanborn Tree Service, and there's a few other tree services that have been, Mike Jones is involved in this a little bit. And if we're doing biomass, we should probably talk to them at least a little bit.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
Thanks.
Awesome, thank you. All right, okay, well, great. I think we're right on time then to transition to our presentation from Marshall. Yeah, take it away, Marshall. I think you're able to screen share.
So let me make sure I can screen share real quick when we get going. Gotta make sure I don't show my top power presentation also.
All right. And can everyone hear Marshall okay? I feel like it's a little
Quiet.
It's a little quiet,
I can turn it up.
but maybe that's just us. We can turn up our volume if no one else is having an issue.
It was quiet and also a little distorted.
Just any better now?
That is better.
Yes, a little bit. Yep.
Yeah,
You guys can see my screen or not yet?
Yep,
yeah.
we can see it.
Okay. All right, so the main reason you guys know me from a lot of different presentations, including my Chattagonian annual fire prediction for the fire season. But today I'm talking about the county of Sonoma's that the fire chiefs are putting forward, the Fire Chiefs Association for Measure H. I customized this presentation more for the vegetation management component, because I feel that's probably what you guys want to hear about. But I do have some of the response side of it as well. So I'll provide an overview. What the actual ballot language says now that it's out in public, the funding that comes from the measure specific to inspectors, vegetation management employees, Fire Safe Sonoma, and then also Permit Sonoma. And then what the Northern Sonoma County Fire District, who's going to receive the 5% of the funds for management, what we're trying to push forward, still in development for a program project delivery, how to use those that 5%, and that involvement and reporting of it. So here's a quick overview of what the tax is. This will be on the March 5th ballot, in a couple weeks from now. It's a citizens-based ballot measure. That means it only needs a simple majority or 50% plus one rather than 2/3. It's a 0.5-cent sales tax for all of Sonoma County in and outside the cities. And some of the discrepancies you're reading in the publications are because of some of the publications were under the assumption it was going to generate 60 million per year. Others were 62 million per year. So it really is going to fluctuate based on how much sales tax revenue is generated. And the two numbers you see out there when dollar amounts are assigned are based off those two different versions. It's either 60 or 62, but in reality, it's going to vary every year. There's no sunset date or expiration. That's mainly because it's going to fund positions, primarily firefighters. Most of the funding is for firefighters, fire facilities, and things that are going to have a long-term capital improvement or a bond or a loan issue. And that's that last bullet point then, that it really is a response tax, but it does have a component that says management and also wildfire prevention. So this is what it'll look like. You guys maybe already seen it, but Measure H. This is the portion of the presentation I'm giving, and if you guys are okay with it, I can get questions as we go, but this is more what would be shared with other fire agencies or groups that want to know more about the response side of the funding. And really what drove the Fire Chiefs Association to put this measure forward was really about response. So that was the primary goal, but it does have through wildfire capabilities, protect the health and safety. That's the nexus to the percentage, 5% plus that's going to go towards vegetation management and wildfire risk reduction. So this is more of the response stuff. I can talk about it more if you would like, but across the county, there's city fire departments. There's independent fire districts that have their own elected boards that are not the board of supervisors. And then there's two federal agencies with Director Rancheria Fire Department and the Coast Guard who won't receive any funding because they're federal. But whenever there's a fire, whenever there's a response, especially of any type of significance, even just a report of a fire on a summer day, it's rarely any one fire department responds alone. The only exception may be the city of Santa Rosa, but everyone helps each other out on a day-to-day, hour-to-hour basis. And then there's something significant like a really bad vehicle accident, a really bad wildfire, really bad building fire, then everyone goes and helps each other out. And there's also provisions and benefits to bolster the rural areas of the county, such as down the Sonoma Marin County line, the coast, where it'll reduce response times and then also hopefully increase risk reduction and fire prevention efforts as well. So this is the best management practices, the guidelines. It's National Fire Protection Agency. That's what the fire agency use. So that's what it's all based on as far as the new stations, the number of increased firefighters. So the proposal, the question, the ballot measure is 200 more firefighters, but really there's only one firefighter on with 2 off. So you really need to divide that by 3 for who actually be on duty at any one time. But if there's something really bad, that means 2 more people to come back to work. You can increase staff, you can up staff for red flags, more robust firefighter suppression staff. So National Fire Protection Agency, NFPA, is the standard for the firefighters for response, and that's what's being proposed and followed for the development of this tax. That station location, how many firefighters should be on a fire truck that responds, and you can see language in here about fire prevention, vegetation management, and also the coordination, which comes down to our dispatch. So I can answer questions specific about that if there's interest, but I think more folks probably want to hear about veg management today. So that's where I'm going to go now, and the remainder of my presentation is more on vegetation management. So here's the actual language, and in that area there highlighted or circled by the red square, rectangle actually, that says what the funding is going to be used for. So that's going to be the law. That's going to be in the county ordinance. Law of fire prevention, preparedness, emergency response, vegetation management, recruitment and retention of local firefighters, updates to essential equipment and facilities, fire stations, transfer of funds from undesignated local agencies and entities. I'll show you how that's going to be percentage-wise allocated out. The implementation costs, county-wide expenditures, and more fully described the action plan, which I'll show you part of that. Whatever any agency is doing right now, they still need to do that. This tax will be above and beyond. So for me, as Northern Sonoma County Fire District, operating the fuels crew, the sales tax is not going to fund the same crew. We're going to do above and beyond and more. So no one should be supplanting is the word being used, using those funds to offset the cost or shift the cost. And this is probably more of a concern in the cities where they do more than just a fire department. For the fire districts only do emergency response, fire and emergency, but in the cities, it could be an issue where they may want to shift funds between various fire departments or departments within the city. And that's the goal here, is not to have that happen. So the allocation, this is only a little bit of the allocation table. It's all in the ballot measure. Depends how much time you guys want to spend on this today. But this is more specific to what's going towards inspectors, veg management employees, fire safety Sonoma, and permits Sonoma. So on the right-hand side there, a screenshot right out of the ballot measure. That's using the 62 million assumption about tax generation. So you can see what's going to the various cities. The cities you don't see listed, such as Windsor and Cloverdale and Toddy, they're in a fire district in the Sonoma, but they're in a fire district. And so they're actually, the fire district is getting the funds that will then benefit the city as well. And then you also see that that's the 5% that's designated for Northern Sonoma County to fund the vegetation management employees or crews. I'm doing my best to make sure they're not everyday response folks, that they're not firefighters or dedicated vegetation management employees. That's the 5% there. So if you look on the left side, primarily a lot of the funding, I can give you the exact map. I didn't do it for this presentation today because it's mixed a little bit, but greater than 70% of the funding goes to fund firefighters. Some of those firefighter positions are also inspectors, spread throughout the county. So 9.5 inspector positions throughout the county. Those are being seen as community liaison, community engagement, vegetation project development, structural hardening, defensible space enforcement using the county ordinance, liaison between fire safety Sonoma and landowners. That's what those positions are being leaned on, even though they're called an inspector. Then there you can see the 5%, roughly 3 million for the countywide veg management, 0.42%, which off the 60 million estimation is $250,000 to fire safety Sonoma for full-time position funding, ideally, to help coordinate projects and build projects. And then another 0.42%, $250,000 based off the $60 million estimate to Steve Mazurchak, the Fire Prevention and Hazmat Division of Permits Sonoma, to do what they need to do to support mainly countywide defensible space inspection. So that's what it says in the ordinance. We'll fund a new regional fire inspector, so those are 9.5 positions. Countywide vegetation management crew to provide enhanced vegetation management. Remember, we're not going to supplant, this is in addition to. And then the very last line, it goes number one of the description of the ballot measure. Countywide crew will perform vegetation management, fire prevention services that will directly mitigate hazards, reduce fuels, reinforce evacuations without infrastructure field breaks. And this was hard to put words to this. People might want to read into what exactly is a fuel break, and I'll talk about that. What the intention is here, to try to get away from using firefighter jargon to explain how we want to do wildfire protection. So I got leaned on as somewhat the veg management technical expert, and we had some meetings, some of us over the years. There was a measure a couple years ago in 2020, measure 3 that did pass. My position has always been that we need to be in line with what our federal, state, local plans that already exist. So at the federal level, as an example, is the National Pollution Strategy. And so those are the 3 points in the red box down there. You can see this proposed tax meets all 3 of those categories. Helps with response, helps communities become more fire adapted or fire resilient. And that's a discussion. I have a slide coming up that I'd like to talk about. And then restore and maintain landscapes. And I'm going to use the CalVTP ecological restoration term to demonstrate how this potential tax is going to help restore and maintain landscapes. So that's the National Pollution Strategy. There's also the state fire plan, the community wildfire protection plans, the fire-wide state action plans. There's a lot of various mitigation plans out there, including the local hazard mitigation plan as well. So this is, I think, a discussion for this group or anybody that wants to talk about what is wildfire prevention. What can we do where, what can we can't do? So I've listed 5 bullet points there that we want to prevent all fires. That's just what we're doing. We want to suppress all fires. Those are going to take policy changes to change away from policy of fire suppression and more of a fire management. Difference between the state, CAL FIRE, and the federal agencies. How are we going to go out? I think the county of Sonoma has some difficulty with this in Sonoma about how do we go out and get people to want to change how their house is built. So we go down through this list. Yeah, we reduce ignitions. Over 95% of fires are caused by humans. Great. We do defensible space, which is within that 100 feet around homes, which is landowner responsibility required by law. Inspector positions will help enforce that and provide education. Ultimately, it's landowner responsibility. 5% is not going to fund work in that area. Structural hardening. I believe it's probably more important than vegetation management, but it's very hard to get people to do it on existing buildings. So new construction, absolutely. And this is not what this tax is funded, not funding structural hardening. So now we can go down to the last 2 bullet points. We want to increase the percentage of low or natural wildfire defense. So if a wildfire does happen, recent wildfires like the glass in the Walberg were not high intensity destructive. When a wildfire happens, all we can do a prescribed burn is burning under more of a low or natural wildfire intensity, primarily not heating up in the tops of the trees to stand on the surface of the earth. So less ember production and less damage to the trees, less erosion, not burning all the stuff, all the material off the ground. And then the last is a mimic for natural wildfire or surrogate. So the vegetation management projects, the program, what's implemented would mimic the role of natural wildfire. What a natural wildfire would have done is service regime. And then ideally, where it's applicable, if it's not going to be applicable everywhere, we could implement a prescribed burn. I don't know if we want us to pause here for a minute and talk about any of this, but this is all the part about wildfire prevention and realizing this tax is not designed to take all of these on and most importantly, not really addressing structural hardening. But we recognize it's very important and we need to keep getting that message out there and develop programs that do use for structural hardening. Pause.
Thanks, Marshall. Yeah, I have a question. Is there any funding in the Measure H for home hardening?
No, there's no funding for home hardening. There is the intention that the fire inspector positions will advertise, advocate, educate on structural hardening, how important it is.
Okay.
Got it. Any other questions?
Yeah, I'm wondering, there's $8 million for the Fire Chiefs Association. And I'm wondering how that's gonna get spent. How does that fit into the big picture?
Okay, yeah, let me pull it up, but off the top of my head, so our dispatch center would be more of a command center, so it'd be putting firefighters in the dispatch center to help make decisions during emergencies and who should respond, what stations should be left uncovered. So there's provisions for that. There's also, throughout the annexations, there's been money set aside from the county of Sonoma to support annexations that are above and beyond any other tax. So that'll now fall upon the sales tax fund. So my understanding is the county of Sonoma itself will get money now back into their funds. It's also going to fund upstaffing for weather events, whether it's a flood or whether it's red flag. There's also a policy, consistent policy, which is called Lexipool across the whole county. So every department has the same. They're mostly administrative policies. So mostly they're synchronizing administrative policies to a service you pay for. And then there's technology upgrades that are coming out of that percentage as well. There will be some potentially discretionary decisions being made. So if there's, let's say for vegetation management, a big project or something that we want to accomplish, it may be possible some of those funds could be in years maybe more than 62 million or more than needed generated for whatever's going on. The project could be fully funded on the sales tax, specific to vegetation.
Thank you.
What I'm going to get into now is how Northern Sonoma County Fire District, as the receiver of the 5%, we'd like to see a governance model is what we're talking about or using that term as, but it may not be a true governance model and kind of what I think a governance model is, but how is this 5% going to be used? So that's his last couple of slides, but I'm more than happy to answer questions. Let me cover the last couple of slides and we'll see what else you guys may want to talk about. So the theory, the way this is set up is 5% comes to Northern Sonoma County Fire District. That's how it's allocated. 5% or whatever is generated, designated for vegetation management. So in the true sense, very simple terms, is Northern Sonoma County Fire District could say, we're going to go do project X, project Y, project whatever. But that's not how Northern Sonoma County Fire District wants to do. So the plan is to set up a joint powers authority agreement, some type of arrangement of elected officials, primarily from the fire agencies, but maybe other agencies as well, that would hold meetings, closely coordinate with Fire Safe Sonoma. Maybe a little more sense here on the next slide. With Fire Safe Sonoma to take the project from a thought to implementation. And so that would also help with annual reporting. Where was the 5% spent? Okay, well, here's the projects or partial projects that were funded with the Measure H funding. These meetings would be monthly, quarterly, as needed. They'd be open meetings. And so that's the intention of this governance. So the sales tax helps fund Fire Safe Sonoma as the countywide Fire Safe Council. We have existing tools in place, such as the Clean Wildfire Protection Plan. We have existing organizations in place, fire agencies, resource conservation districts. Well, a lot of people in this room involved in project development that may want a project funding. So this would be the nexus to getting a project from a thought to implementation. So this is one of the last slides. So this is how I see it happen. We start off with a project design or development. Has to come from landowners, in my opinion, has to have community support, fire agencies, other organizations involved. So it takes a thought, takes an idea, rather than someone just coming to Northern Sonoma County Fire District and saying, hey, I want XYZ done on my road or done on my property. That's not an intention there. Through that designing development, it would follow best management practice. It would get environmental compliance and review done, get the property owner consent. We need to make sure it has community benefit and also strategic value. That we're not just doing managing someone's forest for them. It doesn't have strategic value. So that's what would be the project design development. So by the time it gets to Fire Safe Sonoma or this governance group, It's basically just, it's a legit project. It's been fleshed out. It's just where are our priorities? So someone's got to make a decision on what gets done first. Or where does we go to get grant funding for? Where do we do a match on? This is where I believe we should use an existing tool, the community wildfire protection plan at the countywide level, the same one Tim's going to be using for the ag and open space, the MPG grants, is we use a tool like that to prioritize. Now, it may sound all black and white, super simple, but it gets really tricky when maybe the funding can't fully fund a project, or maybe someone's put in a grant for that project, and now we don't want to spend Measure H funds because they didn't get a grant for it. So that's where there's going to be some ebb and flow a little bit, but that ultimately comes down to a project prioritization, which Northern Sonoma County Fire District really doesn't want to be the dictator of it. We just want to implement where people want work done, where it's agreed upon. So that would be the function of Fire Safe Sonoma as the countywide Fire Safe Council, the nexus to all the fire agencies, to the inspectors, the nexus to all the NGOs, all the other groups that want involvement, to be working together and not be part of that governance model. Then we got to find out, how is it going to be funded? Is 3 million may seem like a lot, or 5% may seem like a lot, but it's also not a lot. So is it a match? Is it an in-kind? Could we get a donor? Could we get private property owners to fund stuff? What are these different variables? So that would be determining the funding, who's the fiscal sponsor, who's going to pay Northern Sonoma Fire District, if the fund's going to be outside, how we can partnership and leverage and make more stuff happen. This is really going to mean that we need that countywide CPP to list all these projects, make sure we're not duplicating or overlapping. And then the last piece then goes to implementation of actually doing the vegetation management, which I put in there not as a separate step, but maintenance. How are we going to come down back and maintain it? How are we going to keep it in that condition? Whose responsibility is that? We're not looking for easements. This is all on the property owner. So maybe there's property owner involvement that has to come down, some commitment there. Well, maybe we can use some roads, some places, maybe always get Measure H funding in the control bin, and some deal breaks always get some priority to stay open. So that's kind of how I see the process. I'd love to hear if Roberta has anything to add to this process, but that's what we've been not been finalized yet. But if the tax passes, this will definitely be the priority. Is what this look like. This would not be, done secretly. This would be open to everybody, and also ideally sync up with grants that maybe the county of Sonoma is going after the Fire State of Sonoma is going. To get us all on the same page as far as a project coordination. So that's what that looks like. Just to put it out there, some of the stuff I've heard and not heard, and what I want to make very clear is this is all intended to be collaborative, ideally mimic the role of natural wildfire. As long as we're going to keep going down fire suppression, well, we need something to take that niche of what natural wildfire would have historically done. Healthy ecosystem. We're not just managing for wildfire, we're managing for everything. So all the projects got to be viewed in that way, that it's not just a fire problem, it's an entire ecosystem problem. Nature, unfortunately, picks winners and losers. It's also got to complement other components. You can't say structural hardening is not important. You can't say don't do defense in the space or not. It's a law. So until we change policy, we got to make sure we complement all these other pieces, all these other ingredients. And I believe there'll be less environmental damage during suppression. We know we have a ridgetop shady fuel break or a location to stop a soil fire. We don't need to go bulldoze a bunch of stuff in the middle of the night because we're in an emergency operation or go through the trees. So, won't be calm. This isn't going to be the fire agency dictating what we're doing. This is my pet peeve. I don't want a lot of this spent on governments and administration. This is about getting work done on the ground. And I'll just say there could be some collateral benefit here with workforce development, partnerships with other organizations, even using private industry where maybe this 5% acts as like a project manager to contract out work, let's say. This is not clear cutting. This is not bulldozing everything down. This is not intended to cause any type of significant environmental damage. So this will all be like LBTP or EIR, some process like that, maybe a notice of exemption for along roads. And nothing will happen unless we get properly under consent. So there's gonna be trust, there's gonna need to be out. So when you go back to the previous slide, project design, project development, this is all gonna flush out in that process. So this is what, the next slide is actually the handout that we've developed, but this is my mindset, hopefully the mindset, I don't know if we all share this mindset, but with Fire Safe Sonoma, revenue coming in, Northern Sonoma County Fire District, involvement of all other fire agencies and whoever else wants to be involved, we realize what we do in one part of the county, maybe not work in another part of the county. There's a lot of different vegetation, a lot of different risks, management plans that already exist, but I'm gonna want to rewrite those. We need to be planning, we need to recognize existing organizations. And then possible use of priorities from those ways would be roadside, because that's evacuation routes, a lot of fires start along roads, it could maybe leverage using, let's say, a road department to do traffic control or help co-fund stuff. Maybe it would also benefit utility companies, the phone lines, power going, strategic fuel breaks, whether they be ridge top, and this photo happens to be a wall bridge dozer line that is grant funded and contained, so we're trying to get grass to grow back, keep all the trees lined up, so that can be used by aircraft or somebody to stop or slow a fire, maybe if it's dry burn in the future. Those fuel breaks, strategically located around communities, but not doing defensible space for residents. Perhaps increase the amount of community chipper days, so there's buy-in, there's already existing member we're not gonna supplant. There's a possibility we could do prescribed burning, where it's accepted by the community. We got a great industry we gotta worry about as well. And then this concept of ecological restoration. For ecological restoration, some of you guys will see this in the Cal Poly presentation this afternoon. This is how the Cal VTP defines ecological restoration. So this is when you hear I talk about ecological restoration or what ecological restoration is. This is the definition I use. To healthy, just for wildfires, a healthy ecosystem, treatments that are in line with that. And ideally, it's more fire resilient, less destructive if a wildfire happens. Maybe allows us to do prescribed burning. So that's ecological restoration, how I use it in this context. I think it is. When this is my last slide, this is the handout that I'll be more than happy to share with you. This is what was out there to help educate and inform, that was put together by Fire Safe Sonoma, Sonoma County Fire Chiefs Association, who is bringing forth the measure through the County of Sonoma. County of Sonoma, other than the cost to process the tax and the funds that go to permit Sonoma, no other funds are going to the County of Sonoma. They're all dispersed out to the fire agencies, Fire Safe Sonoma, etc. But this is the education, two-page handout that's out there right now, supported by the rate. So that's the end of my presentation. More than happy to answer questions. This is a very unique presentation that is, we've done it to be more specific about vegetation management because I felt that's what you guys wanted. But I can talk about the fire response side too as well. So thank you.
I got a question.
Yes.
One thing that I own a few properties, and what I hear from all my friends and neighbors is the single most expensive increase, among taxes and everything, is the price of your insurance on your house. And a lot of people have had their insurance canceled, just plain, they're just, you can't get insurance there. Do we have any connection with I love what we're doing here, by the way, but do the insurance agencies have an opinion about, does this make us eligible for either not raising our rates anymore, or how does it work? Because I know a normal landowner say, why should I do all this work? It improves the value of my home and I'm taxed more because the home is more valuable. But on the other hand, insurance won't insure it. Is there any input from the insurance companies?
Bert, I see your hand. Let me answer it first, Roberta, and then I'll turn it over to you for the increase. So just to take it very high level, in the insurance industry, you've got like building fire response called ISO, what the city fire departments worry about. And then we got wildfire risk. That's in many ways kind of what's driving this is our wildfire risk. So I'm gonna break it to you if you haven't heard this, but the state responsibility fire hazard severity zone maps that were proposed last year that convert a lot of Sonoma County into the highest level, which is very high, are gonna be effective April 1st. So we know, or they know, or the models show we have fire hazard. So we are doing everything in our power to reduce our wildfire risk. Because we can't change hazard. You live in a floodplain, you live in a floodplain. We're trying to reduce our risk. So when I talked about wildfire prevention ingredients, we absolutely we need people to redo their homes with structural ignitability, to be ember and heat resistant. We need people to do defensible space around their structure. Yeah, we could say we could stop every fire, but I'm hoping through vegetation management. Remember, we're not saying we're going to go manage every square inch of managed forest. We just want to restore a natural process. I hope this all shows that we're reducing our risk. And so the bottom up, we need Firewise USA certification, demonstrating we've got a taxing out for beds management. That's bottom up pushing. And then I'm hoping from the top down, state government, somebody pushes the top down and says, you got to insure people. The FAIR plan is not a good model. These guys have reduced their risk, give them insurance and give it to them in a reasonable rate. So that's what my opinion is, my bias is. So I would say, yes, this will help, but I'll just come out and say it. Their model is for profit. My model is, I don't want you dying, I don't want your house burning, and I want to protect the environment. So hopefully we can get there somehow. So Roberta, go for it.
Yeah, so there's two parts to that question I want to unpack for you, Ron. And Marshall alluded to both of them, and I'll try to be a little maybe more succinct or more detailed. One is the Insurance Services Office, ISO. ISO provides communities with a public protection class. They'll give communities a number based on the relative risk of that community related to fire department capabilities, including their communication system, their response capabilities, their public education and inspection capabilities, things like that. And also their ability to deliver a certain amount of water to the target site within the community. This measure, I believe, will improve fire services countywide to where many of our communities, particularly in the more rural areas, should be able to reassess their ISO ratings and get a better ISO rating, which in turn should allow businesses and property owners to reduce their overall fire risk relative to ISO. The other part of this measure that's going to help folks, and Marshall went into a little more detail here, is will allow us, Fire Safe Sonoma, as the countywide council, to better help communities organize and become what's called Firewise communities in good standing. And the California Insurance Commissioner's Office is working very hard to make insurance companies more responsive to homes that have done their defensible space, their structural hardening, and also are in a Firewise community in good standing. We've already seen some property owners that we've worked with for Firewise receive benefits in the reduced premiums. They're all over the map. You know, one homeowner could get a pretty good discount, another homeowner very modest, not so much. Still, as Marshall alluded to, that animal is still all over the map. Within 5 to 10 years, I hope that some of that dust will settle and it'll be more apparent what we need to do specifically. So those are the two avenues, if you will, or ways where a property owner or business owner can benefit from this measure in terms of insurance.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roberta, for that excellent explanation, and as well to you, Marshall, for the great presentation. Looks like Eric has a good question right now.
Yeah, I've got a couple, but I'll start with, how was the percentage of vegetation management chosen, that 5%?
I mean, how was it chosen to allocate 5% to veg management.
Yeah, how is the proportion chosen for 5% for veg management out of the tax versus
You know,
any other number?
Yeah, so this is primarily a response measure. Even if you go back to Measure G, it was about firefighters and providing response. But there was recognition that veg management has to occur, needs to occur to reduce risk. So that's how it got kind of initially brought into being part of it. And then how 5% exactly came about, and here's what's sausage making, whatever you want to call it. The fire agencies put in what they wanted as far as additional stations and firefighters. Then there was analysis done using the NFPA standards, and it might be hard to understand, but the request for funds is well above 62 million. It's closer to, I think, 100 or 110 million. Because a lot of the stations are outdated and need renovation. So eventually got down to, okay, what can be fit into this? We got to modernize some things. How's it all going to flush out? And that's how it kind of came, kind of was almost what was left over, but still realizing it's a priority. So then recognizing Permit Sonoma needed a piece, Fire Safe Sonoma needed a piece, making that all come together. So there was no mandate. It was just recognizing it's important, realizing it's not enough, realizing this is not really a veg management tax, but it's doing something.
Yeah, and to just elaborate on it just a little bit further, Eric, the 6+ million specifically designated to, wildfire safety and risk reduction is earmarked for that. But that doesn't mean an individual fire district can't use some of their additional funds to do more. They're going to receive some of them relative to their current budget, quite a lot of money into their organization. So, it'll be up to those fire chiefs and their advisors to decide where the need is most within those individual departments. I hope many of them will recognize the wildfire safety need within those organizations. And, in addition to the designated funds for this, they may chip in some more. And then indirectly, I will share, I don't know that it's terribly apparent, but indirectly, there's also overall wildland fire safety risk reduction or safety, in that on those red flag days, the fire departments are going to upstaff. This funding will help provide for some of those upstaffing on red flag days, on, days where the weather is looking really bad in general. Dry lightning. Does it look like we're going to have a series of dry lightning? Well, we may need to upstaff. So look like we're going to have flood conditions. We may need to upstaff. And then the final thing that's an additional benefit for wildland fire safety, in addition to overall benefit, is currently our dispatch system doesn't include what's called a command center. CAL FIRE's dispatch system is a command center. It's staffed with fire people that know fire, that can make command decisions. Our dispatch center that handles fire and emergency medical response, it's not a command center. It's just a dispatch center. Call comes in, it's dispatched out. So when there's a need, this measure will fund command staff to go in, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chief Akre, but this measure will fund command staff to go in the dispatch center in Redcom and be there during these events to make those immediate command decisions. So we won't have issues like we did during the Tubbs fire, where requests are going into Redcom, the dispatch center, and they can't fulfill them until somebody in command says, yeah, I need to order this many strike teams or this and that or the other thing. So that's the other benefit I see with this overall for wildland fire safety in particular.
That's really helpful. Thank you, Roberta. Steve Akre, thank you for joining us today. Would you like to share your perspective on that?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having us. And Marshall, you did a great job of presenting this today. I wanted to add one thing on this, the topic of capacity and funding in terms of vegetation management. And a couple of the key points that we designed in this after listening to stakeholders and figuring out that, where we could maybe make the best difference as the fire service is truly to add capacity. And that's where you see with the fuels crew, as well as the regional vegetation management, defensible space inspectors, as well as the executive director for Fire Safe Sonoma coordinating them. But all of those positions add capacity in another way that I don't know if Marshall said this. I apologize because I missed it. But you've now got 9.5 inspector positions, as well as an executive director for Fire Safe Sonoma. You can leverage that to pursue more grant and other types of funding opportunities for other things. I know home hardening was one that we just weren't able to get into this measure, but maybe there's opportunities with that additional personnel, the staff capacity, to go after home hardening grants or other sort of grant funding sources that could help just overall. So that's the only thing I wanted to add. Thank you.
That's great. I really appreciate that comment. One of the questions came up to me. I'll go next, and then Jean had a question, and then Eric, you wanted to got it. So the question I had was related to the no sunset clause in this particular tax measure. Do you envision that once the physical structures and the equipment have been acquired, and then all the fire stations are running at their maximum capacity and so forth, besides the additional staff, do you think that eventually the funding could then be more dedicated towards vegetation management, so that 5% increases over time as it meets greater needs, or has the ability to kind of run on all cylinders?
Great question. And I appreciate especially the topic of the sunset. Just real briefly as background for that, the needs for this aren't going away in 5 years or 10 years, right? So that's why we were adamant about not putting a sunset clause in this, as well as the fact that whenever you look to do something like a capital improvement project, building a new station or renovating one, you're gonna need to take a loan out. This measure does not provide lump sum funding to accomplish that. It provides you basically an annual mortgage payment for those funds. So that's not going to go away. But to your point, to your question, more specifically about what happens when an agency has finished their capital improvement project, that's up to each individual agency. They ought to be doing an analysis of what their needs are and what their opportunities are, right? I think it's highly possible that once an agency spends their money and finishes their build or remodel of their station, that they could then use those additional funds in any of the categories that Marshall shared within the measure. And vegetation management and wildfire protection is certainly one of them. And so, depending on what the agency is, and not to get too much into the weeds, but some agencies are going to have additional capital needs at the end of that 20 or 30 years. And so they're going to roll it right back into more capital. But other agencies are going to be good, and that frees up monies for other opportunities, including veg management. The other thing that Marshall did mention was the REDCOM fees. So that's a big portion. That is like 75% of what the funding that's going to the County Chiefs Association is going for. That's to pay for existing REDCOM fees for both cities and fire districts. And when you have that kind of relief on your budget, that creates other opportunities, right? And so, we were very purposeful in this, that we're not going to micromanage fire districts or cities and tell them what to do. But we did put some safeguards in there that they have to have a baseline budget. They can't supplant. And we gave them the categories that they could spend this funding on.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Jean, did you have a question?
I did, thank you, and I really appreciate your presentations. So the program project delivery, what's the time frame for use of the Measure H funds? And when you talk about long-term, I'm assuming that's monitoring. And by inspectors, would that be CAL FIRE inspectors or local inspectors?
I'll answer it then. So the tax impasse would start being collected, I believe, October 1st of this year. So the expectation is we would start January 1st of 2025 with the program project delivery. So I'm aware of projects that are in development phase or have environmental review that we could jump on right on January 1st to start work. So that's, if that answers that question. And as far as the inspectors go, the inspectors would be local government inspectors, not CAL FIRE inspectors. So not technically CAL FIRE. So just like someone speeding down the freeway, CHP can give them a ticket, sheriff's office can give them a ticket, city police can give them a ticket. Anybody can do the inspection, the law is the law. So these will be local government, non-state controlled, local government in coordination with Fire Safe Sonoma. And then for long-term, I believe monitoring was for the environmental compliance. Yes, we're gonna, well, I don't want to say we have to do it, but we need to do it as part of the VPP process and then the environmental review process. So that'll work, that'll be what we lean on. Whoever's the holder of the CEQA compliance will monitor or will fund monitoring, making sure that all the work being done is not causing damage to the environment and we're properly reporting. So the Cal VTP requires annual reporting.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
How about Eric, do you have a question?
Yeah, let's see. I mean, I have a few, but I'll go to like the main one, which is were alternatives to a regressive tax discussed, or other options like exemptions for staples like food or gas?
Yes. In short, yes, we investigated many different options. The biggest one that we explored, and this goes back to Measure G when we were crafting that in 2018, 2019, was a parcel tax. And that didn't seem to fit real well for a variety of reasons. One is that there's a number of almost every fire district within the county has an existing parcel tax. So we'd be adding on to that. And it'd be at such a rate that it would seem to be inappropriate for property owners. And you know, I'm well aware of the sentiment and the studies that show that the sales tax is a regressive tax. But when we were looking at a parcel tax, what was going to be that end result of that? You know, property owners, renters, you know, the property owners weren't going to just absorb that without putting it on to renters, right? Which is another form of regression. The other thing that we looked at real closely, and I think this was probably this and the fact that almost all fire districts already had a parcel tax, was the fact that, you know what, we're a tourism-driven economy here in Sonoma County, and our visitors use our services. And right now, they don't pay for them because fire districts do not get any sort of sales tax revenue right now. So every time they stay at a hotel, eat out, buy food, visit wherever they're going and spending their money, fire districts don't get any revenue from that, but we're relied on to provide service. I know in my area in Sonoma Valley, the most recent thing that we looked at was almost 10% of our calls for service are for people outside of our area. And so with this tax, while yes, there is that element still that it's regressive for those lowest income people, it taxes those that are here visiting and using our services as well. And so it kind of evens the playing field that way. And ultimately what we're talking about is, you know, and this kind of helped me to frame this a little bit better, is, you know, for every $10 of taxable purchases that somebody does, this tax adds a nickel to it. And I realize it in some people's lives that means a lot, but it really it helped to frame it where it's not insurmountable.
Thanks for
Great.
those
Thanks,
comments,
Steve.
Yeah, and for the interest of time, I'm gonna go to Jason, but before you do so, I have to leave right now, so I'll pass the baton over to Adriana. But I really want to thank Marshall and Roberta and Steve for your willingness to share with us your thoughts and ideas about this tax measures. It's hugely important to our county, and I'm hoping it's going to be very innovative. And I look forward to working with you guys in the future. As a working group, we get a chance to tap into a lot of different resources, and we want to encourage you to keep coming back to us and keeping us informed. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity.
Go ahead, Jason.
All right. Yeah, just to echo that, really appreciate you guys coming and explaining this to the group. I'm really excited about the county getting some additional resources that we badly need. I've got kind of a simple question. Just being a guy on the ground, a field crew kind of guy, I'm just wondering, is there going to be overlap between the fire response crews and the fuel crew? Like, is that up to the individual fire district? And I'm just wondering more of the logistics, like how big are these crews going to be? Are they going to be seasonal? Are they going to be year round? What do you guys kind of see going on?
And I can answer that. So it would be all the field crew, veg management crew members that we employed by Northern Sonoma County Fire District. I really don't want them to be firefighters. That's my goal. Hoping I can keep that. But when I'm gone, you guys got to make sure that stays in place. I don't want them to be firefighters, but I don't want them going to fires every afternoon to take away from the mission. So they're going to be straight up veg management workers. Now, if we get something horrific like the wall bridge, where we got to put people out there to mop up, fence posts and trees and guardrails, and we're gonna have to do something like that for the fire department. But they'd be dedicated 100% of the time to veg management as close as we can. So they're only gonna be employed by one agency, Northern Sonoma County Fire District. They will. There's some different concepts I'm playing with. I would love to decentralize where they're not coming all out of Northern Sonoma County. Maybe we partner with County Roads or some other facility that has, a yard to work out of where it's not a bunch of time wasted in commute. And so they would go to a facility, get together, and then go from there to do work. So that's how I envision it. So that's I don't know if that's a simple, answer to your question, but that's how I envision it going there.
That makes total sense. And Marshall, that would be a year-round permanent position, this fuels crew?
Year round.
Great.
So, and there'll be some overlap. So one of the thoughts is, if I said we got a prescribed burn, we have to have environmental compliance to do prescribed burn, but we could then, with an increased firefighter staff, can possibly uncover one of these extra fire stations and go support a prescribed burn or help a property owner out or do something like that too, right? So there is some stuff that hopefully we can, do more and more of that.
Makes sense. Great.
The other thing that I'd add to that, if I can, is when we look at capacity, a lot of the firefighters, the additional new firefighters that we're going to be hiring are going to be serving rural areas that haven't had career firefighters yet. And so they haven't had the staffing to be able to go out and do the defensible space or veg management inspection. So that's a whole nother big pool of resources that can help make a difference in individual communities. We've even had a couple through our process, a couple of fire districts say that, yeah, when they have their full-time staff, because they don't have a big call volume, they're going to have their full-time staff run a chipper crew and help eliminate some of that built up fuel within their area. So there's a lot of creativity and a lot of possibilities within this measure. It's just hard to get all of those details out, within this. And that's what the importance is of having meetings like this, so we can share in a little bit more detail.
Out there. Thanks, you guys.
I was gonna say one other thing, Jason, we have been doing and we hope to continue to do is, we'll have full-time year-round employees benefited and everything. But we've also had part-time employees, so JC students, other folks maybe that are laid off in the wintertime, like CAL FIRE seasonals. We bring them on as hourly employees to augment, if that makes sense. So we're trying to do workforce development as well as provide full-time jobs. So we're hoping we got to, I don't know what the exact employee costs are going to work out to be, but I'm hoping we can fund about 20 positions with the 5%.
Gotcha. Exciting on the work development front, you guys. Thanks again.
That is. All right, we have a question from Steven.
Oh, well, actually more of a comment. I'm not an expert on tax law or anything like that, but my understanding is that groceries are not taxed. When we were going back to our question about regressive taxes and those kinds of things, eating out, hot food is, but groceries are not taxed. So just for the record, nobody's gonna go hungry because of this thing. But I gotta say, I would really like to see more than 5% of this go toward fuels treatment. That is from somebody who has not looked at all of the details, and you guys have, and I respect your expertise. So but I would just love personally to see Sonoma County put some real effort, and 5% sounds kind of small when we're talking about millions and millions of dollars. And I hear a lot of shoulds, and I worry about that. You know, here's what we want to do with it. Here's what we should do with it. And it's like, okay, is that really how it's going to work? The cynical part of me worries that it won't. But that's just my 2 cents. So I'll shut up now.
Well, I agree with you on all fronts. So one thought is we could leverage these funds. Going back to the clean report that was done a number of years ago, where maybe we could offer up some of these funds out of the fire chief's discretionary funding or out of the 5% to match another grant or help fund more project. Or let's just say a private property owner, maybe a large winery, wanted to do work on the property. They could also then help fund the project. I worry about competing with private industry. And are we going to start taking, jobs away from private industry? So we just got to find out that I agree that more needs to be done, but done the right way too. You just can't go out there and just cut everything. We need to find out what that balance is. And in the short term, it's me. I'm the face of this. So you're going to come to me if you don't think it's being used right. And I'll make sure, hopefully the legacy lives on when I'm gone, that this is always being used for what it's intended to be.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you. We have a few more minutes, maybe 5 more minutes to pitch some last questions, and then we'll end early so that everyone can get on to their 1 o'clock Cal VTP training or whatever else they need to do. But about the environmental review, Marshall, do you guys plan on doing CEQA within your office, or are you going to look for help outside of your office for that?
Yeah, we're most likely going to contract that out. So that could be RCD or private. It's the same comment as we've got a balance to get, taking jobs with the private industry. So whatever that balance is, I don't think you'll see us hire a full-time RPF forester if that's in place. And then that could be the other thing. The Cal VTPs the county of Sonoma is doing. There's other fire agencies that have Cal VTPs now. There's county roads that has most exemptions for county roads. It might be that you just tag on to those existing secret compliance documents. And we could do NEPA for federal ones too, but tag on to those and not duplicate efforts. So that's why Jason Knowles and I, we've had a little conversation about doing large area Cal VTPs as more strategic thinking and this concept about planning units, so that long term we become more efficient in doing this project. We're basically just then prioritizing and finding a funding source. We've got everything else lined up.
Yeah, I mean, I think at some point the county will be probably covered with a patchwork of VTPs, and those last for 10 years or so. So that's going to serve us for quite some time. Okay, any other questions? All right, any last comments from you, Chief Turbeville or Akre, about what kind of vegetation management projects you would like to see happen at this time? If you were the ones who were making these decisions without collaboration, or I know everything's going to be decided with the input of your partners and the public, but what are some things that you're anxious to get done with this funding?
My main thing is use of the roadsides, because that supports evacuations and where fire starts, but we also need to actually work away from roads. So I would say roadside, and then the money's going to the fire agency, for fire districts. So if anybody, any voter, anybody member of the public is not happy with how the funds are being used, they need to go to their fire board or their city council and demand, ask. That's gonna be the control mechanism here, other than the tax oversight. So any concerns about more veg management or what's being done, or you want something done, I encourage everyone to get involved, and I'm probably talking to the wrong crowd here, but get involved, talk to your fire department, develop a project. Let's make sure we do these projects environmentally safe, best management practices, collaboratively, and I think we can get a lot more done when we start our working together. I'm not saying we don't, but we can get a lot done. So, thank you.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for sharing more about Measure H with us. Really appreciate it. And we'll see what happens next month. Hopefully we get it passed.
Marshall, Steve, we appreciate your time. Marshall, you might consider getting a better mic. That you were the weakest voice on all of the different things we did here on the thing.
I think it's more than my mic, it's my computer. I'm sorry. My computer program for one second. Yeah.
You've been super clear at your other presentations in the past, so maybe it's just this setup, this particular setup. But anyway, thank you very much, and we'll see you guys next month.
Thank you so much for having us. We appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming.
Bye-bye.
Bye.